Wednesday night we read Dr. Claude Anderson books, and there was just some heavy stuff in there in terms of just just so much history that we never learned in school, and just things that, like, for example, a lot of people don't know Harriet Tubman. She was a spy for the government, right? And she like put her life on the line, and they didn't even pay her. Like it took them like 30 years to give her money. Like, and then also one other thing that was just wild and crazy is yeah, right. How many of y'all knew that? Did anybody else know that? Like that literally Harriet Tubman got screwed by the government and she was really upset because they didn't pay her. Like, who doesn't pay Harriet Tubman? That's crazy. In fact, not only did Harry not get paid, but she didn't even get the 40 acres and a mule. They promised her the 40 acres and a mule, just like they did with everybody else. And you would think that if anybody deserves, 40 acres and a mule, it would be an American hero like Harriet Tubman. And no, they didn't give her the 40 acres and a mule. And here's the thing that's really fascinating to me that a lot of people don't know about sort of what happened with the whole 40 acres and a mule thing. So they passed this law, and then the reason that they didn't get the 40 acres and a mule was because there were northern landowners. This is the North now. This ain't the South. You can't put this on the dirty South. They were doing some dirty stuff, but this was not from the South. The North, they're your allies. Your allies, they wanted to own the land. They were like, why should these Negroes get all this property like when we should have it, right? All these plantations, we want this land. So they just canceled it. They were like, okay, we're not going to give it to the black people. We'll let you buy it. And so northern landowners came down south and bought a lot of the property, and that's a big part of the reason why you didn't get your 40 acres and a mule. So what that really says to me is I call me a cynic, but I don't believe we have any allies. I don't think we have any true friends. These are your friends. That's your homegirl stealing your husband. You know what I mean? Like that's your that's your that's your buddy, and he's trying to take your house, and he's looking at your girlfriend, your wife. Like, that's not cool. Like, so with friends like that, do you need enemies? And also, when your friends act like that, then do you have any friends? Or is everybody just an enemy and some people just hate you less than other people do, right? And, so somebody hating you less is not the same as them liking you. So yeah, so go tell your kids. Tell me in the chat. Can we like spread the word? Let people know. Dr. Claude Anderson, it's in his book. His book is called Dirty Little Secrets, and this is the book we've been reading for a while, probably almost a year now, or 8 months or something. And we've been reading all his books for the last 5 years, and we've gone through them all. And literally in this book, he explains in detail that the reason you didn't get 40 acres and a mule is because of the northern landowners who wanted to own the plantations, and they basically said, we don't want them to be slaves, but they ain't supposed to have no property, and that Negro ain't never supposed to have more than what I got. If that black guy has more than me, then that's a problem, right? So that speaks to how there might be people who are rooting for you as long as you're not doing better than them. Tell me if that's not life. Tell me if that's not life. Have you ever seen that where somebody's like really happy for you as long as you're down and out and suffering and you're at the bottom, but the minute you start to do better than them, oh, then they can convert into a hater real fast. Mike Epps talked about that. The comedian Mike Epps. He said when I was broken and on drugs and falling apart, he said my friends would be like, "Come on, King, you could do this, King. You got this, man. You don't go. Come on, man. It's in you." And then the minute I start doing well, when I was healthy and strong and working out and making money, he said that same person would be like, "I don't like you." Yeah, yeah, right. So that to me speaks to just the nature and the natural aspect of competition that sometimes we deny that, right? We want to believe that our friends are our friends all the time. And that really takes us to our next point, which is something I was doing this morning. I was doing an analysis, kind of a deep dive. I do deep dives within my own head, where I was doing sort of looking up some things in terms of the Black Panther Party and what they represented, what they accomplished, just the amazing work that they did, and then also mistakes that were made, right? Just areas where we can do better next time, in terms of sort of acknowledging, like, hey, man, this was really great, this was really revolutionary, and just unbelievable. But what are some areas where next time we do this, we're gonna do it just a little bit better. Or maybe next time, they won't be able to come and get us with the banana in the tailpipe because they did the Panthers so dirty. They came in and they killed the leadership and infiltrated and everything else. And I'm not in any way here to armchair quarterback what these people were doing, especially given that a lot of them were young, right? And this is an important point to understand. A lot of them were like I'm 54. A lot of them were half my age or less, right? And so I can tell you this, most of you will probably agree that if you go back, because I know a lot of you are over 40, may over 35, if you went back, 20 years and looked at the choices you made 20 years ago, they would be different from the choices you would make now. Do you agree? Let me know if you agree with this. I think this is important to understand that with age comes wisdom, right? With age comes reflection, and you're supposed to get smarter and better with age. And somehow we think that age getting over say 40 or 50 years old means okay, now you're worthless, your time is done, the only good ideas are coming from like young people. And that's not true. Young people have a lot of creative ideas, they have a lot of courage, and they have wisdom as well. But you cannot ignore the OGs of your society because they've been there, they've done that, they've seen things, they understand things. So like when I was at University of Kentucky, we had a very successful protest against the administration, and the reason our protest was successful was because of a great man who I've never said his name before in this room, but I'll say it now. His name was Chester Grundy. And we were all a bunch of young, angry college students, and we were trying to figure out what our next move was going to be. And we kind of knew, but we didn't really know. And so Chester came in. And he came to the Black Student Union meeting where we're all pumped up and mad because that was when the black girl got attacked because she wrote the letter supporting the articles I was writing in the paper, and they put a knife to her throat. And he came in and he basically talked about something they did in the '60s, and he said in the '60s we did a silent protest. And we were like, what is a silent protest? And that was where we went in front of the administration building, the busiest building on campus, and hundreds of black students all stood there in front of the building, and we just silently held up these signs. And we did that for I think a good 2 months, and it was very disruptive to the campus. And I remember that experience very well because I had to go there every day because I guess I was more visible, so I felt like I had a responsibility to really be committed to it. So and one thing I remember too though is there were days where the weather would be really bad, and we all agreed every day at lunchtime we're going to stand there in front of this building. Now, here's two contrasts. I want to lay this out for you. This tells you about the different types of black people. This is just a reality. So, so there was one day I remember when BET came to campus. When that was a big deal. When BET heard about what we were doing and they sent the reporters to campus, everybody showed up. Everybody ran out there. We had hundreds and hundreds of people standing out there because like BET's there. They got the cameras. You want to show up, show and prove. Then on the other extreme, there was one day I'll never forget. This building is called the Patterson Office Tower. It's like literally like 50 stories high. It's the tallest building on campus. So the wind would blow really, 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 really hard around this building. And there was one day where it was pouring rain and the wind is blowing. And so the rain's blowing in your face and the weather was just terrible. If you hold up a sign, the sign's all rickety, umbrellas all tangled up. Like it was terrible. And on that day, I remember saying, man, I don't want to go out here today, but we got to be consistent. So I remember going out there that day. And do you know that all those hundreds of Negroes that were out there when the sun was shining and BET was there, all of them were gone. The only people that were there with me that day, I'll never forget this, were three black women. Three black women came out there and stood there out there with me in that cold ass, nasty ass weather. I went to the Black Student Union meeting and I cussed everybody out. I cussed them suckers out. I said, y'all ain't nothing but a bunch of damn punks. You are freaking cowards. What the hell? How in the hell you got the women out here messing up their perms? Because you know how important the hair is for the ladies. I've learned this. My wife educates me every single day. She's getting her hair done now, right? And literally not one other black man was out there with me that day. I said, you deserve to be oppressed because you ain't nothing but a bunch of damn punks. Who taught you to think this way? What the hell's wrong with you? Your women are out here being braver than you? That's pathetic. That's embarrassing. No wonder you're getting that he's got his foot on your neck because you ain't nothing but a punk. And I was that's how I was talking. And I'm sorry. I make people mad when I talk like that, but seriously, if you don't man the hell up and gain some courage and fight for what you want, The world will always kick you in your ass. And I hate saying it like this, but this is the world according to Boyce. But again, remember, I'm biased. My father was a police captain. He was a military veteran. He was a person who has been to the highs and lows of life. And he taught me early, ain't nobody going to give you nothing. You're going to have to fight for it. So one of the biggest things I think that we have to understand in any sort of movement, anything that we are ever trying to claim, if you ain't really ready to really go out there and ride or die for what you believe in and stand up on 2 feet under all conditions, under by any means necessary, then you don't deserve what you're asking for. You ain't nothing but a beggar. That's all you're doing. You up here begging. You're politely begging for something in a world where people fight for what they want. You know, how you going to sit in there? How you going to stand up to a Donald Trump and you're showing up looking like Oliver Twist, like a little miserly bum, like, sir, please, Master Second. No, you can't do that. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. So yeah, I remember that. I'll never forget that. And so my point in bringing this up was that wisdom that Chester Grundy brought in the room. I don't know if he was in his 40s or his 50s at the time. You know, when you're in your 20s, everybody over 35 seems old. So you don't know the difference between a 45-year-old and a 65-year-old, to be honest. So I don't know how old he was. I just know he came in, he had a real deep voice. He was real cool brother for, like he really done been through the movements and everything. I think his daughter Saida is running like the Black Cultural Studies or something at Boston College or something, right? So real cool, just a great man. And he told us about this protest, and it was like the best idea, and we did it, and it worked, and it got their attention, and it got the job done. And so my point is to say that, like, so when you talk about a lot of our movements, um, a lot of movements get driven by young people, but if you're young and you're really trying to make change, you should consult with older people too, right? And older people should make themselves available to consult with younger people because a lot of things don't change. There are a lot of cycles that just repeat themselves. And if you don't consult with people who've already been through those cycles, then you're not gonna figure it out until you're too old to really go back and do the things you should have did when you were 24, 25 years old. The elders have the wisdom. So I think that in this wealth revolution that we're in, the revolution that we're going to win because we just don't we're not here to lose. Um uh the solutions, actually many of the solutions are in the hands of your grandparents. Any black person who was born or who became an adult before integration, like let's say they were in their teens or their 20s when Dr. King died, people like that were born in the 40s and the 50s understand things about the world that a lot of people beyond that time don't understand. They grew up in an era before you had affirmative action. They grew up in an era before you had DEI. They grew up in an era before you had this false belief that other people were going to do certain things for you. And so they learned how to survive. They had survival skills. They knew how to make a dollar out of 15 cents. They knew how to feed 5 kids with $100 a week or whatever, right? They knew how to figure it out. And that sort of ideology, that conservatism that nobody's going to save me, I got to figure it out. They knew what a community looked like. They can talk about parts of your neighborhoods. They can go to parts of Baltimore or parts of Louisville, Kentucky, or parts of Chicago and say, man, okay, this is a dangerous neighborhood now. You got gangs and death and everything else. But let me tell you what it looked like in the 1960s. Oh, we had a restaurant here and a bar here, and this was the strip mall, and everybody would go shopping. Like they would tell you about these times where these impoverished areas, these places that have broken down and dissolved into nothing, used to be these really vibrant places where there was lots of activity and there was opportunity and possibility. Not so much to say that it was just wonderful all the time. It wasn't. Things were different, but they can talk to you about that, right? So I think that those individuals are an underutilized asset. And what I really wanted to drill into in terms of the Black Panther movement is is that you had this awesome movement with a lot of the young people that were standing up against the government, standing up against oppression, standing up for the black community. But at the same time, they also had a heavy, heavy, heavy Marxist influence. And we've talked about this, right? Marxism and communism, they deliberately and strategically in the early 1920s-ish, I guess, decided to recruit the black community because they felt that the struggle of black people was similar to the global class struggle between communism and capitalism or Marxism versus the state and everything else. And that to some extent is actually true. If you study the roots of Marxism, which I'll go through some of the principles here, you'll understand that yeah, they're right about a lot of things. But the problem is though that when you take on these allies, you have to be really careful because their agenda ain't always your agenda. In fact, their agenda supersedes your agenda. Do you understand? So the black agenda ain't always everybody's agenda, and black unity gets crucified when someone else's agenda comes in and says, okay, these are the good black people, these are the bad, right? They that divide and conquer is a method of control. Remember the Hutus and the Tutsis in Rwanda, divide and conquer. Next thing you know, Hutus and Tutsis are slaughtering each other because some outside influence came in and said, these are the good ones, these are the bad ones. You go to India, same thing. You go to parts of Africa, same thing. Black people in America, same thing. You're a Democrat, you're a Republican. So, you hear a politician, we should support the black woman in the election. But then when the black woman's a Republican, it's like, no, but we support all the black women except for the ones who are not Republicans or are not Democrats, right? Right. And that is, again, divide and conquer. So when you have two black people, let's say one's a Democrat, one's a Republican, and they say, hey, I want to still unify. I want to find common ground. I want to find a common agenda that we can agree on as a community. You've always got these outsiders just kind of jumping in and kind of cock blocking. That's the term. They're kind of blocking the blessing by saying, no, 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 no. He's black, but he's not in the right political party, so you can't talk to him. And that is when your freedom gets imposed upon. That's when you're reminded that you have a boss. That's when you're reminded that your fate is not your fate, your destiny is not your destiny. You don't get to choose nothing, right? Which, in my view, undermines one of the key principles of the Black Panther Party. If you looked at their 10-point program, one of the things they asked for was we want freedom. We want power to determine the destiny of our Black community. That's a powerful statement. It's kind of broad. I think you have to ask, like, okay, what does freedom look like? What does that mean? Like, just explain that. Because I think they said something like all power to all people. And I was like, what? I don't know. I'm trying to figure out what that means. Like, what does it mean to have all power? Like, I can do anything I want. I have infinite power, and everybody has it. And so I think specifics, I get it, right? We all love visionary leadership. We all love the idea, like a politician will use a slogan that's like forward, and we're all like, yeah, forward, yeah. And I'm the guy who's like, what does that mean? Like, what's forward? Like, which are you looking north, south, east, west? I mean, we get in our car, but like, what does that mean exactly, right? And at some point, you got to define things. You got to be able to measure things because sometimes what can happen with leadership, political and otherwise, is they like to give these broad, ambiguous slogans, and nobody knows what the hell it means. And I think that's intentional. It's intentional because it's like, well, if nobody knows what it means, then everybody comes up with their own interpretation and it fits their own worldview, right? So I can connect with everyone by saying, what's the slogan? Hope. Hope is our campaign slogan is hope. Hope for what? Explain hope. Like can I eat hope for dinner? Can I put hope in my bank account? Can I put hope in is hope gonna drive my kids to school in the morning? Is that what hope does? Like what is hope like a car? Like what is that, right? So I'm not big on that kind of thing. I understand that. I think emotionally speaking, we need the visionary leadership, but I can tell you, in my view, a lot of the visionary leadership doesn't lead to real results, right? Like so if I'm leading my family and I tell my wife's like, so what is the goal for our family? And I say, hope. She's gonna be like, Negro, what's wrong with you? Like, I gotta be specific. I gotta say, okay, I'm gonna get us 100 grand in the bank account. We're gonna start this business. I'm gonna make sure I'm there for you and the kids. I'm gonna kiss you every morning, right? Specifics, right? Like that drives your mind toward the goal. So the 10-point program, I understand why it was written as we want freedom, okay, and we want the power to determine the destiny of our black community, and then it was like all power to all people or something like that. That's a little ambiguous for me, but I understand why it was written that way. But then here's the other thing too. Um, when you say we want the power to determine the destiny of our black community, well, then right there, that says to me that maybe you should wonder if it makes sense to allow so much influence from communists and Marxists. Because you at that point when you're sort of aligning yourself over aligning yourself with an outside entity in that way and they're guiding your ideology, then you're kind of relinquishing control of your community to some extent because you've given them the ability to do a divide and conquer. right? I hope tell me if this is making sense. I'm going to say it one more time, and hopefully everyone will get what I'm saying here. If a Marxist leader comes in and says, "Okay, you're going to be the black chapter of the Marxist movement, or you're going to be the black affiliate of the Communist Party," then that pretty much kind of means, unfortunately, that any black person who's not a communist cannot be really aligned with you anymore, right? Like we're kind of segmenting you off, and so you can't say our black community. You have to say our Marxist community, right? And that's where that's where B1 deviates from everything else, because B1 says that the driver of the car, the driver of the vehicle, must be the black community, whatever that looks like for you. It looks different for different people, but you got to be the driver. You have to be the originator of the movement. Karl Marx wrote I think it was called what was it, the Communist Manifesto. Is that right? What it's called? He wrote that in the 1850s. I'm smarter than Karl Marx. Most of us, there are many people in your community that are, or just as smart. He's a guy that wrote some great ideas. Lots of people have great ideas. Your great ideas are just as important as someone else's great ideas. Just because it was written in 1850 something doesn't mean it's not better than something we can create right now in 2025, right? I don't look at those ideas as being superior, but maybe it's because I'm a professor, and I don't know if he was a professor or not, but I have a whole PhD that says I have the license to create original ideas, right? But I'm not the only one. There's you got plenty of scholars and thinkers in your own community. I would argue that though that ideas that are best for the black community must originate from the black community. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that? Is that hope that's not too radical to say black people should originate the ideas that are going to benefit the black community because you understand your community best? Okay, so second thing that they said is we want full employment for our people. Okay, this is where I would have loved to have been an economic advisor for the Black Panther Party. I would maybe I wouldn't have been invited because I'm not. I would say, look, I'm not a Marxist, but when you say we want full employment, let's refine this idea, make it a little bit tighter, because if Black Power is the slogan and that's the goal, then power is connected to economics. At the very least, you should have the power to pay your bills. Because if you have the power to pay your own bills, then that means you have to you spend less time having to collect money. You're able to hire a full-time staff that can focus all their energy on the movement, right? I want you to process how many movements can't really grow because the people that are doing all the protests and everything have to go to work on Monday, right? Because the baby still needs a new pair of shoes. You still got to go pay the rent. You still have to make sure that you can eat every day, right? So an economic plan, in my view, would have been essential, and it could not, and it should not be one that sort of says, broad-based things like all, all people, all wealthy people are bad, or even insinuates this on any level, right? Because in the civil rights movement, even there were wealthy people like A.G. Gaston who wrote big fat checks to help Dr. King pay his payroll so that he could continue to move forward with his movement, right? So full employment, and also the term full employment is a heavy term because when you say you have full employment, uh, I'm asking, well, who's providing the full employment? If all of you have full employment, which means 100% of you, that would be full employment, right? 100% of you have a job. The question should be, well, who the hell are you working for? Who creates those jobs? Where do those jobs come from? Right? Like if all of us are hanging from a rope, who's holding the rope in the air? Right? Like if all of us really, I mean, so maybe instead of just full employment, maybe it could be a more comprehensive plan to say we want to create businesses so that we can create full employment. Full employment, if it's not created by the black community, then that means the full employment is probably created by the white community, which means that ultimately, unfortunately, you're beholden to those who are paying the bills. He who has the gold makes the rules. That's just the reality. So full employment is to me that's a trap. That's a trap. Okay, everybody go get a job. So white folks say, okay, we understand where you're coming from. We've got jobs for everybody. Are you sure that that's a good idea? Are you sure that's going to move you closer to your goal of freedom, or do you think that you've signed yourself up for a deal with the devil? A lot of employed black people out here. Millions of black people have good jobs, but I wouldn't argue that those black people feel free. right? Okay, let's keep going. We want an end to the robbery of by the capitalists of our black community. That again, that's a Marxist statement. That's not a black statement. And also the idea of that statement being so strong, we want an end. Let me say it again. We want an end of to the robbery by the capitalists of our black community. Now, first of all, robbery is bad. You shouldn't rob people. Um, and then labeling the enemy, like saying the capitalists are the enemy. And I get it. I'm not a capitalist. I'm not a big fan of that. But I think that that kind of statement almost makes money into a form of evil. So when the rich black guy shows up and says, "Hey, I want to help out, but I do have a business and I have products, and you need to buy products. Like you got to buy bread, you got to buy shoes. I have a shoe store, I have a bread store. That's how I make money, and I'm good at it, and so I have money." Well, if I label you and I say you dirty pig capitalist son of a bitch, you're robbing the community because you're charging money for your product, then I'm going to automatically alienate those who might have that ability to create the economic independence that we claim to seek. So then what I do is I end up going right back into the hands of the white capitalist, you know, because I mean, you need full employment. You want full employment. Well, I'm not a capitalist. I want to keep saying that, but capitalists are pretty good at creating jobs when they want to do it, right? Not to say that they care about you, not to say that they do the right things all the time, not to say they're good for society. I don't believe in hardcore capitalism. I know a lot about it. I know capitalism on a scientific level. I'm a professor at this. This is what I do. So I'm not saying they're perfect, but I'm saying that your goal is full employment. Well, who somebody's got to create a job. Who's better? Marxists ain't creating a whole lot of jobs. That's not their strong suit. They got a lot of strengths, but that's not one of them. So, so that statement about ending the robbery by the capitalists of our black community, um, I think that that statement could be stated in such a way where it's a little more connected to the realities that say, okay, we got to find some way to pay these bills. And so perhaps um, ethical economics. I just made that word. I just made that term up, but it sounds good. Ethical economics, right? Right? Or black ethical economics. B. We bees in the trap, right? B. Like so maybe the black ethical economics could be the pathway to do that, right? That says, okay, just because you own a business doesn't mean you're the devil. Because I'm not committed, I'm not pre-committed to any ideology that has told me that you're bad. Because you're my brother, I want to connect with you. That's my priority. Just like a Marxist wants to hang out with a Marxist, capitalists want to hang out with capitalists. A person that loves the black B1 wants to hang out with B1. So it's like, okay, you're a different kind of B1 from me, but maybe there is something you can bring to the table that can help us accomplish the goal. Okay, so you say you own a business and you say you're able to make money. Well, one of our goals is we want all of our people that are looking for a job to be able to find one, and but then we want to segment off some people that want to create businesses so they can create those jobs. So you can help us achieve this goal. I think that it's a mistake. It was a mistake for the Black Panther Party, for any of those who were influenced by this idea that people with money are bad, or that those who own businesses are bad, or whatever it is, right? They have bills to pay, and it's like, okay, how are we going to get this done? Moving on, let's see. We want decent housing fit for the shelter of human beings. I don't disagree with that at all. I mean, decent housing is important. Again, everything has an origin, so the question always becomes, well, who's going to provide this housing? What does that look like? Is it the government? Well, the US government ain't really doing as much for people as they should. And maybe they will one day, but I don't think that they will because they've allowed money to infiltrate the government. And so at that point, you got to go to plan B and say, okay, how are we going to get housing? How are we going to make this happen? Next point. This is a good one. We want education that exposes the true nature of the decadent American society and teaches us our true history and role in present day society. How many of you agree with that? How many of you, I'm gonna read this. This is point five of the Black Panther 10-point plan. We want education that exposes the true nature of this decadent American society and teaches us our true history and role in present day society. How many of you agree with that? That we should learn our real history, learn really what happened to us, learn where we come from, learn who we are. Okay. So the next question I would ask, at risk of sounding like an asshole, but I'm not trying to do this. I'm trying to just really think this through. Why can't black people do that? Like you're making this as a demand. Who are we demanding this from? Like, I mean, really? Like, do you agree with me that black people know enough to educate our own kids? Do you agree that we have enough thinkers and teachers and scholars and and books to educate? I mean, really, and this is where you got to go back to before the civil rights movement, before integration. You had millions of black people that came out of slavery and had better schools than the white folks because they would have some lady who loved black babies and would put them all in a room and have a couple of books, and those kids would be better educated than kids at the finest schools because they would implement discipline and love and motivation and consistency and everything else. So when you say we want education, okay, right? Like I don't even. Again, I'm not. I don't want to say I'm not critical, but in my view, in a B1 philosophy, education that exposes the nature and the true nature and the decadence of American society, that's not something I would demand from anybody other than myself. I would instead of writing it as a demand and saying, "Hey, Mr. White Man, I need you to give us education that exposes the true nature," and da da da. I would come to you and I say, you know what, y'all, we need education that exposes the true nature and the decadent American society and teaches us our true history and role in present day society. So we got a class Wednesday night called Powernomics, and we're gonna read all the books by Dr. Claude Anderson. And when we're done with Dr. Anderson, I got another Black History book over here, Black History 365. I think we should read that, and then we're gonna have what we need. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? And by the way, if you haven't joined the class, you can text the word greatness to the number 87948, by the way. Greatness to the number 87948. Somebody type that in the chat, please. Because I have a whole like class called the Black Keys to Greatness, and it's more like a time management, life management class. I just created it because you guys asked me to create, so I can give you the link to that, and you can join for free. Um, so that's not a demand for me. That's just that if it's a demand, it's a demand on on myself. I think that the clearest pathway for Black people to truly have independence is to learn, really embrace this idea of what do for self really means. Like, do we really understand what the term do for self actually means? And are we okay with that? I mean, it sucks. It's kind of hard. It's tougher to do stuff by yourself. But you do live in a world where sometimes if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. If you want Black children educated, you have to do that. You can't outsource that. I run a company. Sometimes I'll ask my team members. I love my team, but I'll be like, okay, I need y'all to do this, and then they'll do it. I'll be like, no, 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 dang it, and I'll be like, no, all right, let me just do it. Let me just do it. Then. If you want it done exactly the way you want it done, you're gonna have to do things for yourself. And who trained us? That's where I really start to question things. Is I'm like, who taught us that we can't do things for ourselves? And I'm not saying that that you shouldn't ask for help and accept help when it comes, but like, who made us feel so powerless that we sit back and we say we demand this and we demand that, but we don't say like, okay, but this is the part that we're going to do on our own, right? And I'm not saying the Black Panthers fell for this at all because I'm not in any way any position nor condition to criticize what they did in the 1960s. I was not alive at that time. It was a difficult, very different, difficult world. But I think it's important to talk about this. Now, okay, number six, we want all Black men to be exempt from military service. I mean, I ain't got no problem with that. I mean, shout out to the veterans. Love y'all veterans, 100%. You put your life on the line for this country, and I will never disrespect a veteran on this platform. However, I have no issue with number six. Right? So, because Viet Cong ain't never called me nigga, and we also know that a lot of these wars are BS. Y'all know this, right? You do know that, like, a lot of times they're going to war over money, and I'm sorry, I don't even think it makes sense to die for your own money, let alone to die for some rich guy's money. Let him send his kids to go fight that war, right? Like Venezuela, they got the ships around Venezuela, whatever, and it's all because they got all their oil, right? So let somebody else go die for somebody's oil. Like that's not your job unless you get paid enough. And you're like, okay, I'm cool with that. I'm all right with that. I don't judge anybody's choice here. But I will say, number six, it's not a problem for me. Number seven, we want an immediate end to police brutality and the murder of black people. Well, that's logical, right? Police should not be beating up on you, and you should, and dead black people are a bad thing. For some reason, we created a whole hip hop music industry. Somebody did that celebrates dead black people, which is a contradiction that we have to sort of address. But then let's see. Number eight, we want freedom for all black men held in federal, state, county, and city prisons and jails. Um, I think all the disparities of the criminal justice system are real. We're more likely to be arrested when when we commit the same crimes. We're more likely to be convicted. We're more likely to get longer sentences even for the same crimes, 100%. But I bet everybody in this room knows at least one person who probably needs to be in jail, who's in jail and probably needs to stay there until things change. Like anybody know somebody that's in jail and you're like, yeah, I'm glad they put Pookie in jail because Pookie ain't right. He's hurting people, right? So I think that this illusion that somehow every person in prison shouldn't be there. I think obviously common sense says that that's not true. But when you talk about improvements in incarceration, the criminal justice system, I think that's a no-brainer. I think that our criminal justice system in general and our incarceration system has so many problems. I'm not even gonna go through them all, but I just think about, for example, the fact that we make jokes about prison rape. It's ironic to me that if something like that happens to a white woman, it's like she gets $100 million and it's the worst thing in the world. But you send a black man off to jail and it happens to him every day for 5 years straight. Everyone thinks it's funny. I don't think it's funny. I think it's horrible. I think it's toxic. I think it spills over into the community. People come home with HIV, STDs that happened in prison. They're sleeping with your women. It's spreading through the community. Therefore, HIV rates and STD rates in the black community are really high. For whatever reason, no one talks about this consistently. I guess we're waiting for white people to start discussing it on CNN before we take it seriously, but this is actually happening right now. All right, so and that's just one of the probably 20 things I would state in terms of problems with the criminal justice system. So much reform would be needed there. What else? We want all black people, when brought to trial, to be tried by a jury of their peers or people from their black communities. No problem with that either. I think that's awesome. I think that's smart. Um, 10, we want land, bread, housing, education, clothing, justice, and peace. I like that, but again, I think that goes into my zone of the economic conversation, and it speaks to just sort of saying, okay, what does that mean? What does that look like? And I think that what I'm probably aiming for is I think when we're making demands on other people, I think it's also very important for us to sort of sort out the things that we believe we can do on our own. So when you talk about providing land and housing, education, clothing, justice, well, justice and peace, that's kind of more political. But peace can be restored in your community. I knew a black man named Dr. Christopher Emden who teaches at Columbia University, and Christopher is one of my favorite human beings. I haven't even talked to Chris in years, but I remember Christopher telling me that he went to his old community in the Bronx. I went to Chris's house. Chris has this beautiful house that his parents left him, and it's like 4 stories high, and it's immaculately set up. I mean, this man, I mean, just beautiful. Everything's just the most beautiful house, and it's not like a mansion or anything, right? It's in the kind of in the hood, but it's like beautiful, right? He just made it really nice, and and I asked him how he did it, and he said that he did it all himself. Him and his wife just went in there and just got to work and spent years doing this. And then the other thing he said that was a problem was in that neighborhood they had a crime issue. They had, a thug over here, criminals over there, drugs being sold over there. He said so he and other black men in the neighborhood got together and patrolled the neighborhood. They cleaned up the neighborhood. They didn't say, well, we demand that you give us peace. They said, oh, we're going to create peace, whatever that means. Um, and I don't hear that kind of talk as much because I think that we're trained to be very passive about our condition. We're trained to believe that there's nothing we can do to make things better and that our job is to complain and that complaining is the same as actually doing something. New Era Detroit is another great example. Thank you, Calvin McWilliams, smartest black man in America. New Era Detroit, they're doing amazing work. I don't even know the guy who runs New Era Detroit. I just follow him on Instagram and I just put the fire emoji whenever he says something. And I hit him up and I'd made a little donation. I said, hey, keep going, man. This is great. King Randall, there's a kid in Georgia who's running a school for black boys that's excellent. And the minute I saw King Randall, I instantly got on the phone with him and I said, "I'm sending you some money to support this, right?" So these little things where we figure out like, okay, I can help on this. There are things I can do. That's really, I think, I mean, if you want to talk about like the quickest pathway to personal, family, community liberation, it has to start with saying, "What can I do to fix this?" And it also but that comes from acknowledging that ain't nobody coming to save you. um, there are plenty of people though that are out there willing to waste your time, give you catchy slogans, tell you who to vote for, tell you to wait for Jesus. And there's something about the culture where we've been trained to sort of do that, to be very passive and say, well, one day this is going to change. And the change that I've seen, like the families I've seen that have gone from 0 to 100, the communities that have really, really done well are typically communities that have just embraced what they can actually control. And this goes back to my view on black leadership. Black leadership really starts at home. Black leadership almost never starts with your favorite politician because they're controlled by money. They work for the capitalists. They work for the people that make the money. Black leadership doesn't start with the Negro you saw on TV. Black leadership certainly doesn't start with your favorite actor or rapper, right? But black leadership starts with that mother, father in the house. Black leadership starts with those individuals who get special training. Black leadership starts with those who say, okay, let's get up here and let's do something. Let's figure out what we can do right now. Let's get together. Let's make something happen. Black leadership might be that family investment club that you create where you say, okay, no more generational curses. Let's go set up the trust, put the money in the account, make the investments, and build that wealth, right? That's black leadership to me. Leadership where you inspire those around you to take some sort of action that's going to make your lives better. Or a brother talking to another brother like, hey man, all that drinking is going to kill you, right? Or a woman talking to a sister like, hey, when it comes to your kids, you might want to try this instead of that, or whatever, right? And be nice to that man or be nice to that woman. That woman is your legacy. She gave birth to your kids, man. You don't talk bad about the mother of your children because she gave you a tremendous prize, and don't disrespect that man. That man loves you and he's there for you. And so, you have to learn how to respect a man. Men like respect, right? I think leadership starts there. It just starts with initiative. It starts with kind of not being afraid to have an idea or to pursue something or to take some sort of action or have a voice that just originally originates from you. Your leadership must originate from you. It must originate from the core. It must originate from a pure source. The purest source of black leadership is the black community because the black community understands what the black community understands. And when you're solving a problem, like if you're doing surgery on a body, you have to look and figure out what's the issue here. This person's really sick. What's going on? Okay, the heart's not working, the kidneys not working. Whatever. Well, the surgeon has to go in and say, "Oh, I get it here. There's a problem with the heart. So we got to go right to the core. We got to start right there, and we work our way out." That's very different from having somebody come in who don't know what the hell's going on, who's got an agenda, who's trying to sell a pill, who says, "No, no, no, just give them this pill. That'll make things better." And then you give them the pill and then the person dies and then you're like, how did they die? Well, I don't know. We gave them the pill. That's supposed to be the solution. How the hell what makes you think that that's going to be the solution when the person solving the problem doesn't even understand the problem and doesn't care about the problem? Like, do you really think that the Democrat or Republican Party is really sitting up every day saying, how do we solve the problem for the black community? How do we make the black community better? Do you think that the Marxists, when Karl Marx was over in Russia writing books on Marxism, was thinking, I wonder how we can help Negroes in the 1960s achieve freedom and liberation? You think he was thinking about that? Well, he was thinking about his life, his world, his universe, his situation. So you're trying to take somebody else's situation and apply it to your situation, and then you wonder why it's not a good fit. Because you're putting a square peg in a round hole. You are the original man. You are the original woman. Your solutions must originate from you. Do you understand what I'm saying? So if you ask me, like, do I think it's appropriate that all these Marxist ideas are infused into black liberation struggle? Yes, it's inappropriate. They ain't taking black ideas and saying, "Oh, we're gonna use the ideas from African Americans on how we're gonna make Russia better." They're not doing that. So why should I take? You're not taking any of my ideas and using them for your society. Why should I use your ideas to fix mine? Part of the reason that you'll adopt outside ideas and let people's political parties influence who you are is because you don't know who the hell you are. You don't know who you are. So the first step to solving the problem for you is you got to know yourself. You got to study yourself. You don't wait for Mr. White, sir, I need you to give me an education so I can learn who I am. That don't even make no damn sense. How are you going to ask somebody else who you are? Are they your parents? The only person I would ask who I am is my mother or my father. That is it. I'm not going to ask a white teacher from the suburbs, who am I? What does it mean to be a black man? Lord Jesus, that's a mental illness. You damn half crazy. Stop that. You figure out who you are. You figure out who you are. And I guarantee you, once you really know who you are, then you can go in the world and you can hear different ideas. You can hear about Marxism, capitalism, Democrat ideas, Republican ideas, whatever, capitalist ideas. Like you can hear it all. You can be in it, but you ain't of it. Do you understand? Like all these ideas are great. If you read Marxism, Marxism is so smart. I like Marxism. Like class struggle drives history and societal change. Yep. The working class, the proletariat, must unite against the capitalist class, the bourgeoisie. Yep. Labor is the source of all value. Not quite. It's not all value, but it's important. It's a big chunk of value. But workers are exploited under capitalism. Yep. You've heard me say this a lot. Have you not heard me talk about the capitalist exploitation of workers in America? How many of you have heard me talk about this relentlessly? Oh, yeah, AI is going to take all your jobs. Amazon just announced they're going to let go of 600,000 people so they can hire more robots. Yeah, you got to get ready because, yeah, they don't care for that job. Don't you dedicate your life to that job. You're gonna die at your desk and they're gonna roll your dead body out the door and replace you within 2 days. You've heard me say these things. So I have nothing against these. Let's keep going. Um, Private ownership of the means of production leads to inequality and alienation. Yep, yep, yep. Inequality is going to happen in most societies. And let me tell you why inequality is almost an inevitable reality in this world. I'm not saying that you shouldn't aim for equality in some level, but here's why inequality is a bit of a naive idea. Even the Chinese, a communist society, eventually said, I don't know if we can aim for equality. Let me tell you why. Let me ask you a question. Would you agree that in life that there's some inequality in the amount of effort that people put in to their own achievement? Would you agree that some people work harder than others? Yes or no? I like simple questions to get to complex solutions. Give me a yes if you agree that, some people sacrifice a lot, some people sacrifice a little, some people work 3 hours, some people work 20. Give me a yes or no if you agree that some people take big risks and make big investments, and some people don't want to invest nothing. They live in their best life every day. So here's my point. If there's inequality in the input in life, then there's going to be inequality in the output. On the basketball court, there's tremendous amounts of inequality. There are some players who practice every day for 4 hours a day, and they get all the points. And then there's some players who don't practice at all who get none of the points. And I don't know how realistic it would be to think that we can live in a world where everybody gets the same number of points, even when they did not practice. And I ask you this question as well. Who would want to live in a world like that? Would you want to live in a world where the person next to you who did nothing gets the same reward that you get when you done sacrifice. You worked your ass off. And this has been the problem. This is when communism, which is a more practical application of Marxism, is applied, and they're like equal everything for everybody all the time, no matter what. Well, then people are like, man, well, then why should I even put any extra effort in if I'm gonna get the same as the next guy? Or why should I make the investment and start the business if I'm gonna get paid the same as if I was the employee? Well, shoot, let me just take the day off and send me my check. Right. And so it hampers productivity. So here's the thing. An equal society that's equal in outcome, I don't know how to create that reality. And if somebody knows of a country that's done that successfully, send me an email. Okay. But here's what I do know you could try to aim for. In America, it does not fit the criteria at all. But maybe you have a society where there's equal opportunity across the board, which says that if I want to work extra hard and have better results, I can do that, right? And America is flawed in so many ways. We know these things. But you know as well as I do, and stop lying about this. You know that that black kid who studies every day is going to have more opportunities that they create in their life than the kid who doesn't want to do his homework. Give me a yes or no if we agree on that. Give me a yes if you agree that the black woman who saves her money and is financially careful is going to be in a better position than the black woman who throws her money up and at the club and throws it out at the mall and wastes it every day. Yes or no? Give me a yes if you agree that the person who is relentless, who works hard, who's trying to figure it out, who's starting businesses and everything, is typically going to end up in a better position than somebody who sits back and does nothing, eats Cheetos, smokes weed, and watches Netflix all day. Yes or no? Well, according to the theory, and this is why you got to be careful about theoretical explanations of the world. Theory is beautiful to have a framework, but theory is terrible when applied in practice. Is that this idea of this complete? Here's the thing: that exactly what I just described to you would be seen by some as inequality. You deal with this. A lot of you deal with this. Tell me here. Let me give you an example. How do you have people that you know that if they found out how much money you made this year investing in the stock market would be pissed off, would think you got lucky, would just think like, oh, you're just blessed. You're just blessed with opportunity and wealth and that we don't have, and you don't like really. How many of you know people like that? Right? A lot of us do. A lot of us know people if they found out how much money you made, because I know how much money you made because I've been counting you. I've been watching this. I'm in the same market you're in, and this thing has been raining money. You have a lot of people in your family who would probably say, "Oh, he got lucky. He's so blessed. He's not, he ain't in the struggle like me." Well, part of it is because you chose not to be in the struggle. It does not mean that there aren't systematic factors for sure. We know these things, right? But stop lying and pretending like there's just no opportunity for anyone anywhere, right? And so here's what China did. China said, okay, yeah, we kind of like communism, but man, we don't know if this is really going to work because don't nobody want to get up and go to work every day because everybody gets the same thing. So what they did was they created more of a free market economy where they allowed people that wanted to go start businesses to start businesses without being impeded by the government too much. They rewarded ambitious, hardworking people. You make more money, you get more possibility in your life, things like that. And the downside is that it obviously created inequality, and it wasn't always because society was imposing inequality. It was because there was inequality that's naturally going to be imposed by individual choice. Because we're just not the same. We have different values. Maybe you want to work 10 hours a day. I don't, right? And that inequality, I don't know if that's always as horrible as people want to make it out to be. Now, the inequality that is horrible, though, in America is this is where the Marxists have a very good point. America is a society where the capitalists are sneaky as hell. The people that control capital in America since the 1970s have conspired to dismantle labor unions. So, whenever workers get empowered and try to organize so that their capital base can counterbalance the capital base of the billionaires, what do? They start trying to chop it up. They start trying to find out who's leading this effort to unionize, and we're going to chop it up. Starbucks is hilarious to me because Starbucks had a CEO that pretended like he was super liberal and down for whatever, and he put the Black Lives Matter sign up, and he put the gay rights flag up on a gay pride week or whatever. But then when his workers started unionizing, He turned into a Republican real quick. He busted that union up. He started firing the leaders. He started like he started doing some of those dirty things that the capitalists do when they at the end of the day have pledged allegiance to the shareholders. That they don't you see, people a lot of people don't know about Milton Friedman from the University of Chicago in the 1970s, who somehow convinced the world that the number one job of the corporate manager was to maximize shareholder wealth. That's a huge mistake. That's wrong. Your job should not just be to maximize shareholder wealth, but a lot of people bought into this. So the CEO of Starbucks knew, like, okay, I can be symbolically liberal, but I can't really be financially liberal because when it comes to the money, I got to pump it up to the boss. I got a pimp, and my pimp expects to be paid. So, so long story short, a lot of these ideas, if you read through what Marx wrote, he makes very good points. We probably think alike on a lot of issues. And these are actually points that I've brought up in class before. I've talked about things that he's mentioned, like how capitalism and putting yourself in the capitalist machine by defining yourself by the job you have. I don't define my children by the job that they're going to take. I'm like, you're a human being. You're not an employee 100% of the time. So don't define yourself by what you do. But that's capitalism. They train you to do that. And what it does is it takes away your access to the rest of your life. It is a heavy impediment on freedom. And so part of freedom, in my opinion, starts with wanting freedom and aiming for freedom and making the commitment to point your mind in a direction that leads to freedom. Because here's the thing, one thing, for example, the stock market, there is nothing blocking people from taking some of their extra money and buying stocks. I know lots of people who have a job who own stock in the companies that they work for because the company, if it's a good company, they'll make it easy for you to buy their stock. They'll be like, here, buy it. We'll give it to you at a discount. Here's some stock options, right? Whatever, right? And so this idea that somehow everything has this big gigantic wall where the opportunity to build wealth is completely blocked off for the majority of society. That is a myth that fits a political narrative, but that does not match reality. And I encourage you to, when you're sitting by yourself and you're trying to figure out how the world really works, I encourage you to not get distracted by how the world is supposed to work or how somebody on TV told you that the world works. I want you to look at your life and just start there. Start with the core of what it means to be your own greatest black leader and to say, what are my problems and what can I do to solve some of them and make them better? And I guarantee you, you're going to come up with so many solutions that by the time you get done implementing all the things you can do as an individual, you ain't even going to have time to worry about what some politician or some guy on TV had to say. Right. So all these big lofty leaders that have these great ideas, they're not as great as you think, in my opinion. I think that they're interesting. They provide a framework, but if you get too caught up in that, then it'll dismantle your ability to have the ultimate goal, which is freedom in your own life. I don't like the fact that the Black Panther movement was so heavily influenced by Marxists. I think that they were manipulated in that way. I think that they should have been even more influenced by Black people of all backgrounds who care about that community, who say, I got children here, I got a family here, I got, this is my community, these are my streets. Let me sit at the table with you and help you come up with a solution that's going to make our community better. And some of those people may also say, look, I don't want to be a Marxist. I don't know nothing about them white folks, but I do know that a little girl got shot on her tricycle in my front yard, and that bothers me. That should not be happening in my neighborhood. Those individuals are the ones who will come up with the best solutions, not some guy who wrote some freaking book over in Russia in 1855 or whatever. That is almost like a dastardly abomination in terms of what it really means to solve a problem. So problems are solved locally, and the most local you can get is with yourself and with your family. Start there and then work your way out. These big lofty ideas, most of the time they won't get the job done for you. You'll just have a bunch of false hope and then end up dying sad that nothing ever changed. All right. So I hope this was helpful. And I hope it didn't sound like I was dissing the Black Panther movement. I wasn't doing that. So please don't send me messages saying, how dare you, you coon, you so I'm not here to say that. I'm just here to be honest with you. And if my ideas sound different, just know it's because I am different. I've been studying for 40 years now. I mean, like I've, like so. So what? So the things I might say if I was a 24-year-old who didn't go to school, it is very different from what I would say as a 54-year-old who got his PhD 25 years ago. So or 23 years ago, right? So just know, like, that's why my ideas might sound a little different. It's not because they're 100% right. I know that they're wrong sometimes, but really, I want you to just have your mind open, and go listen to your grandma, listen to your grandfather. Don't you dare ever, it drives me crazy when I see some kid that goes off to college and they get introduced to a bunch of stuff that their professors taught them at some white university, and then they come home preaching to their grandparents like, you're old fashioned, you don't know what you're talking about. Like that to me, that's a disgrace. Like, no, you listen to your elders. They know some things, okay? So anyway, a couple things I want to mention really quick is if you have an interest in estate planning, we are doing that this week with Dr. Sabrina Williams in the Legacy Investors for Tomorrow Club, our estate planning club. You can go to drboycelift.com, Lift. That's what Legacy Investors for Tomorrow. So drboycelift.com if you want to join. One membership fits the whole family. Number two, we actually, because we want our children to know AI, at the highest levels. I had a long conversation yesterday with one of the greatest AI experts in my web, and that's Micah Smith. And Micah Smith, who runs the AI Empire Society, we were talking about some things. And one thing that we do have, and the AI conference replay, actually, it is available, Melvin. I'm going to send that out. So thank you for reminding me to send that out. Thank you. We did do the Black AI conference, and also we have flashcards for kids on AI. So if you want to teach AI to your kids, you can just go to drboycebooks.com and just look up flashcards and look up AI, and you'll find it there. drboycebooks.com. And last but not least, if you are studying stock options with us, I sent you all a fast cash action plan on some things you could do to make some money in the near future. If you want to try it out today, you can actually do that today. So feel free to join us to study stock options. It's drboyceprime.com, drboyceprime.com. All right. So have a good day, everybody. God bless you. Thank you so much for listening. I will see you all tomorrow as well. Have a good day. Take care. Bye bye.